We are live on the banks of the Red Cedar. My name is Geoff Preston. This is Bondy. It was a team that was known to all on Saturday night, but it wasn't necessarily for the best reasons. We are here following an MSU loss to now number 2 Oregon. 46-27 was the final score out in Eugene. The Spartans had a 9-point lead in the third quarter, but 28 unanswered points from Oregon sealed the win for the Ducks. MSU now drops to number 13 in both the Associated Press and coaches poll. And Robert, really it was that second half from Oregon that put the Ducks in the driver's seat for the win on Saturday.
It really was. Michigan State consistently was moving the ball all throughout that first half. Outside of that 3-and-out to start the game, they moved the ball pretty well and, turned the ball over on one of those drives where they looked like they get some points, punted a couple, but when they got going, that 24 consecutive points really was something. Or actually 27 consecutive points on 5 straight possessions. And really, they controlled that game up and through that third quarter till the end of the third quarter. Once Oregon turned it on, there was no turning it off. The momentum there in the stadium, how loud it was, computers in the press box were shaking. On the field, apparently, it was even louder. And Michigan State just really couldn't cope with that momentum that Oregon brought. And, as much as Oregon's, fans and the momentum they had there, a lot of it also goes to Marcus Mariota, who truly had a Heisman caliber night.
He probably put himself in the driver's seat for that award.
He really did. I mean, the numbers he put up, 318 passing yards, 65 rushing yards, and, most of that was the second half. I think he had negative, I want to say 4 or 5 in the first half. So really he stepped it up in that second half and really proved why Oregon's so dynamic as an offense, mainly because of him.
And the defense did force a few turnovers as well, obviously. You talked about how the MSU offense was able to move the ball, but they also turned the ball over.
Yeah.
And so really kind of Connor Cook's late interception that was on a tip pass as MSU was driving.
Right.
That kind of really sort of didn't quite put the nail in the coffin for MSU, but it started it. Yeah,
it really did. That turnover, you could say it wasn't Cook's fault. That ball was tipped, but he did kind of force it into some
great
tight
play
coverage.
By the corner,
and the
too.
cornerback made a great play. And I really don't think Cook had a bad game outside those 2 turnovers. He did pass for over 300 yards and had a couple touchdowns. And when he was on, he looked comfortable in the pocket. But once Oregon got the pressure going, they did start showing more cover 2 in that second half. He said after the game that kind of mixed them up a little bit. Something that even Tony Lippett said in practice they weren't practicing against, and really weren't ready for. But when he was on, But Oregon got too much to him late, and I think that was really another factor in the game.
And obviously going into this game, the big talk was playoff implications.
Yes.
Only week 2, very early on, but Oregon, they looked like a playoff team and maybe the best team in the country even after that win against MSU. MSU now, though, not just because of them, but the Big Ten didn't do a whole lot to help them out. That conference's perception is really wavering, and they have a lot to do to make a case to be one of the top 4 teams in the country come January.
They really do. I mean, they only dropped to 13 in the rankings, and obviously that does play a little bit of the role in everything. They started so high, where last year they started unranked and still made the way all the way up to the top 5 by the time the Rose Bowl came around. But you pinned it right in the head there, where the Big Ten's perception is going to kill them.
Yeah.
They can win, which if they were to still be alive, they'd have to win out. That would mean 11 straight wins. And that would include wins over Nebraska, Ohio State, Michigan, and then a Big Ten championship team, whether it's Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska. So, I mean, those are wins that would look good on paper, but at the same time, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough just because of the Big Ten's perception, and I don't think it's fair losing on the road to a team like Oregon early in the season, but the Big Ten hasn't had a great perception, and it didn't get any better after this weekend.
That's the thing, is that those losses might look good on paper at the start of the season, but Nebraska won their game against McNeese State by a second touchdown.
20 seconds left or something
Ohio
like
State
that.
lost to Virginia Tech. Michigan got rolled by Notre Dame. It's almost as much out of the hands of MSU if they can win out, which is obviously still something that they have to do.
And, they did last year after losing Notre Dame early in the season regroup and came out obviously to win the final 11 games. That was week 3. So it's not by any means out of the question. This is a better Michigan State team in my eyes, but it's the outside, the outside the program what's going to hurt me most, I think. So it's it's kind of where it's out of their hands. They can win out, and winning out. I mean, 12-1 deserves it, you would think, but
Yeah.
they're going to need help. They're going to need some other teams to stumble, probably a Big 12 team to have 2 losses come out of their conference. Hope maybe a Pac-12 stumbles and Oregon maybe doesn't run the table, something along the lines of that. It's obviously very early in the year, but it's not looking as good as it could have been. And it's not really Michigan State's fault almost.
Yeah, you know, a game that I think we both can agree the score was not quite as indicative of how close that game really was. Oregon scored a late touchdown, but nonetheless, they all count one. And for Michigan State, they're going to have an entire week to, you know, kind of stew and fester over this loss, and maybe it'll be a positive for them. They can go back to the film, see what they did wrong. They have this Saturday off, obviously. Next Saturday at Spartan Stadium, they're going to do it again against Eastern Michigan. And we are going to be here later to preview it. We probably won't be here later this week, but we will be back to preview the Eastern Michigan Eagles and the Michigan State Spartans. And until then, from the Red Cedar River, I'm Geoff Preston.
I'm Robert Bondy.
We'll see you later.